So I am super happy and incredibly excited about being here. I have this opportunity to talk with everybody about something that is very dear to my heart. So who am I? So I am Scott Patterson. I am the co-founder and former executive vice president of Visual Concepts, makers of NBA 2K, part of Take Two, makers of NBA 2K and 2K Sports. Um, and after 34 years of making great games and working with some of the best people in the world, I retired in April of 2023 to pursue new things. I made a film. I opened a film company, jumped into Hollywood. My first movie, Go for Grandma, starring Amy Madigan and Justin Lupe, won a bunch of film festival awards, showed very high production values and a social impact. And I will talk about why this is relevant in this presentation. I am currently working on some new technology development. I'm always doing something. So I've always got something in the works. The film was inspired by true events, explores the enduring bond between grandmother and grandchild, the power of imagination and the resilience of spirit. It'll be out on Apple, Google, and Amazon Prime in the fall of this year, and you can check it out online. I'm just very proud of it. Won a bunch of awards at different festivals.
Hi, Mama.
Why are you always the last one out, huh? And standing around waiting for you like a drug dealer.
What's on in here that should never be left on?
The faucet?
Correct! He's not as dumb as he looks!
Officer? I was hoping you could talk with my son. You know, he's always saying that he's starving, and I don't think he really knows what that means. Do you think that maybe a night in jail would set him straight?
Sure. He keeps complaining, bring him in.
Already?
Yeah, Mama's not coming today, okay? Go on.
Where's your mom?
She had to go to the doctor.
And your dad?
San Francisco. But my grandma lives on the same street as me. Tells me all these cool stories, and she says magic is real.
I think your grandma's right.
Lucien, I need you to tell me the truth right now. Mama, does she forget about food a lot?
Yeah.
Listen to me. Why don't you send him to his dad's for a while?
Oh my god, are you kidding me right now? Lucian, what do you think? Are you excited about going to work with your mom or dad?
I think you should go to your room now, Lucian.
We sing for Grandma. Are you there?
Go for Grandma. Over. Would you like a bedtime story? Over. You know what to do. Once upon a time, there was a little boy. One day when he was walking, he said to himself, "Oh, maybe today is the day I will meet up with a dragon."
I just want you to know that you've been a very brave boy. But you don't have to be brave anymore.
Thank you. So that was my first movie. It was really a labor of love. I was asked by someone in the audience here to give a speech about company culture and my unique views on it. And company culture is something that I figured out after kind of long period of time, sleepless nights and lots of trial and error and lots of mistakes and trying to figure out a better way of doing things. So company culture is a word that's thrown around a lot. And I figured I would start by Googling it to see what people perceive company culture to be. According to Google, company culture refers to an organization's shared values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors that shape its personality and how work gets done. It encompasses the vibe within a company, influencing everything from daily operations and employee interactions to higher level decision-making and the overall work environment. Essentially, it's the collective spirit and the glue that binds the team together. Honestly, I think that is the silliest thing ever. I think that's a whole bunch of words thrown together that is just jargon to me. My view of company culture, it's just about the people. It's all about the people. It's only about the people. At the end of the day, it's the people. It's only about the people and who you hire and how you inspire them and how you retain them, because at the end of the day, my view is the entire company gets up and goes home. And if you're lucky, they come back the next day inspired. I don't believe that it is anything that you instill or structure or schedule or process into existence. I think it's the natural. I think the way to build it is the natural result of bringing the right people together and supporting them in the right way and inspiring them. Then they are the company and they're the culture. So this is, so I hire the right people, I bring them together and support them as individuals who are part of a larger group. So for me, this approach proved to be very effective. Not easy, as I will talk about, very, very hard, which is why I think most people don't do this, but it worked for me. What do I mean by this? What do I do? Well, I thought to myself, you know what, if it's all about the people, then I got to constantly be thinking about the people. And so I figured out a number of questions that I try to ask myself every day. Do the people, who again are the company, in my opinion, do they feel happy, appreciated, and empowered? Do they clearly understand what is expected of them? Do they feel comfortable expressing their thoughts, feelings, and ideas openly? Do they feel fairly compensated for their work and rewarded for their effort? Do they feel they can be honest? Do they trust and respect each other? Do they trust and respect the company? Do they feel they are kept in the loop? Do they feel they have influence over their own future at the company? So they're pretty basic questions. I ask myself these questions all the time. And in order to really understand the people who to me are the company. Now, it was tough because sometimes I would ask myself these questions. In order to get answers to these questions, I would have to interact with people. And sometimes I would discover things that I didn't like to hear. But every time I would do that, I would learn something new that maybe I could be doing better, that are something that I haven't tried yet. So it was a constant learning process, but always coming back to me wanting to ask these questions about the people that are the company. I don't think, as I said, that process structure and guidelines don't mean very much. I think asking these questions reveals issues and opportunities for growth, and the solutions become pretty obvious. It's very hard to do, but worth it. You know, it's really easy to say, okay, let's put some process and structure in place, and let's have this schedule, and let's have this person report to this person and do this and do that. That's the easy way to do things. And that's, you know, because that's like how you can kind of organize things and not have to worry about it. But I don't believe that that's the way to make the ideal culture. At least for me, what I consider the ideal culture is a very flat environment where people really care about what they're doing, where they feel respected, where they feel trusted, where they come in to do their best work yet, where magic happens without you doing anything. That's really difficult to achieve. It's really easy to put structure in place, but I believe when you put structure in place, you get people to clamor up or politics fester. And that's the antithesis to what I believe is the right environment in order to get people, you know, inspired and motivated and give them the opportunity to do their best work yet. That movie that I showed you, the reason that's in there is because Hollywood, the film industry, is Very different from, say, software development. Software development, you have a bunch of people who are together for a long period of time, who ideally get to know each other and work together, whereas in the film industry, granted, it's a very old industry compared to software, but it's pretty linear. It's very linear. It's very compartmentalized. People come in as contractors for a period of time and then leave. And people at the beginning and the people at the end, the only people that are there are like the key people, the director, the producer, maybe the writer, sometimes, but not always, the cinematographer, the few people like that. Everybody else is just involved in one compartment along the way. I decided to, which means you don't have a lot of camaraderie, you don't have a lot of trust, you don't have a lot of understanding. I decided to approach filmmaking very differently, and I approached it like developing a software product or building a software company. Found some really great people, really cool people, and they were inspired by the story. And they said, hey, I want to work on this. And I said, okay, great. Well, who else do you know that can help out with this, that's interested? And so it grew from people being inspired to people bringing their friends, some really amazingly talented people together who wanted to work on this core project. And then I said, okay, go for it, make it happen. And I stepped back and I gave them full creative freedom. And I was just always supporting them and saying, yes, yes, yes. When they're used to hearing, no, 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 you're over budget. No, you're over schedule. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. And I was the opposite of that. So they really created something very, very special. And that's, again, why that's here. So, but again, that was hard to do. It took a leap of faith. It took trusting people. The key thing you'll hear me say a lot. Also, at the end of the day, everyone's heard the expression, words are cheap, actions mean everything. So I will tell you that everything that I'm saying to you here today, the only reason that it worked is because I actually did it. It's really easy to talk about this stuff. It was really hard to do, but I actually did it. I never gave up. And I looked at each new day as a learning experience based on all the things that I would look back and going, oh, I wish I had thought of that before. Well, tomorrow, I can think about it tomorrow. I can think of a new way. So how does this work? I could go on and on and on. How does this work? Let me get into some specifics here. Okay, it's all about the people. Okay, good night. Thank you. No, it's all about the people. So people are complicated on the macro scale and the big scale, but they're not so complicated on the micro scale when you break things down into things like the basic questions that I talked about earlier that I ask myself every day about are people happy? Do they feel trusted? Do they feel that they understand what they're supposed to do? Do they feel supported? And so on and so forth. And on that level, when I look at it from that level, it's not really that complicated. You just have to be willing to ask those questions and be curious about what you don't know. This only works because it's about the people. So you have to be really careful in who you hire, right? You have to hire the best people. You have to work hard to understand them. Flat is key. You start putting structure in place. It's really tempting to do, but then you kind of eat away at the core values here. And that's people anybody can talk to anybody. People work together. They trust. There's not cliques. There's not politics. That goes away when you have structures. You have to keep it very flat. But very flat means you don't have processes that to fall back on. You have to be curious. You have to be asking questions. You have to be continuously looking for answers. Key thing here. I believe that I would never expect people to come to me with problems or asks. You can't. And if someone has to, I believe that if someone is coming to me saying there's a problem, it's way too late. I was not paying attention. I should have been asking more questions. I should have been talking to more people to find out about it before they made what's often an uncomfortable decision to coming and talking to me in the first place. That's not very comfortable doing. And so I think back, okay, this person's bringing this issue up to my attention. It's probably been going on for a while. That's my fault. So I got to figure out how to be more aware of these things. Again, it's a cycle. If things appear to be okay, that might not be the case. I, because again, I don't expect people are going to come to me. And I think that if it looks like things are okay and no one's complaining, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means no one's complaining. No one's coming to say to you out loud, there's a problem. I don't like this. I don't feel trusted. I don't feel supported. I don't feel happy. I'm thinking about moving on to another company, whatever it is. You got to ask those questions. You got to be curious, because if you think everything is okay, you're probably not looking deep enough. Retention is critical. I will talk about the great links that I will had and do continue to go to in order to find great people. So once I find them, I do everything I can to keep them. I also believe, and this is very important, and it's easier to do when it's a flat culture, when there's not politics, there's not people trying to look good for some reason. I believe in giving credit where credit is due. I was never out there to want to take credit for anything. I'm happiest when people just go and do things, because that is all of my effort coming to fruition of making an environment where people just go and do great things and then let them take the credit for their work. That's just really important. It may sound like a no-brainer. I don't know. I know a lot of companies where there's people who try to take credit for things because it's all part of the structure. And again, if you're in a flat environment where you give people every opportunity, just give them the credit. I always try to understand the details of the work people are doing. For many years, every year, I would ask the producers at my former company to assign a feature to me with no special treatment. And I would go, as an engineer, I would go in and have to talk to the artists and, look at the code and figure things out on my own with no special treatment. And I would get a knock on my door and they'd say, "Is it done yet? We need it." I'm like, "I'm working on it." But that way I would go down, just work down there, figuring things out on my own, which is very important. It's very, very important to understand intimately the details of what everybody is doing. I mean, how can you not? But yet again, most people don't. I think in any kind of managerial position, most people don't do that. I don't know why, but that's just me. Again, ask questions. I ask questions. I make improvements. Repeat. It's a never-ending cycle. Ask questions. Figure things out. Find that there's an issue. The solution is usually there if you're asking enough questions and talking to enough people. Try to figure out how to fix it or what to do. Or that's a key. I had to catch myself there. How to fix it. Usually, in my opinion, how to fix it is how to do something better yourself that you're not doing. You're not being aware enough of what's going on. You're not being supportive enough. You're assuming that there's not too many people involved in something, or you're assuming that someone's not overloaded. When there's a problem, I would think that it's my fault for not having seen it. So I wouldn't go. So fixing it for me is figuring out what I'm not doing or what the company is not doing that it could be doing. That's pretty key. And each time you can learn new things. I apply my philosophy to everything: games, film, new technology. I believe that this is the way to treat people the way you want to be treated. And it works for me. I talked about the film industry, that it's very different than, say, the game industry or software industry, but my ideas proved very helpful with Go for Grandma. So let me talk about the first part. If it's a company based on people, it all starts with hiring. It's the importance of immaculate hiring. So good hires are critical. They enable everything that I'm talking about here today to happen. Bad hires don't. Never going to happen if it's bad hires. So you have to be very careful in who you hire. I talked about the film industry. It's very compartmentalized, but I still hired only the best. Set an incredibly high bar and keep it high. Only hire people who meet the high bar and align with the culture so they thrive and grow together. What I mean by that is, so as an engineer, I would tend to hire a lot of engineers. And I would go through hundreds of resumes, pre-screened resumes. These are resumes that I've already determined have the prerequisite in terms of education and number of years of experience or whatnot. Then from that, I would go through them and I would look for maybe the 1 out of 10 that, based on my years of doing this, I can spot as good potential. And then out of those, I would talk with them, I would give them a technical screening, and then at the end of the day, about 10% of those people would make it to the round of actually coming in for an interview. So right now we're at 1% if you do the math. 1% of the pre-screened resumes. That's pretty picky, but I found that I had to be picky because I had to hire only great people because the company is the people. This, so, right, I talked about I would go through hundreds and hundreds of resumes. And then after people, then the 1% would come in, I would bring them in, and they would take a test and they would be interviewed by experts. And the experts would then, having done this, I would do the same process every year. I mean, so every time, over and over and over. After a while, they got good at figuring out whether or not somebody, based on the Q&A and their test results, figure out whether or not they have the aptitude as well as the attitude and the personality to really fit in right. And that's really critical. And then also, this is really key, the experts make the final decision. Thumbs up or thumbs down, no exception, no matter how much pressure was on me from other people in order to hire, whatever. It's like, sorry, they said no. So I would have to go back to the stack of resumes and start all over again. But again, that was just critical. I believe in and never breaking that rule for a variety of reasons. One, because if the experts are the experts that you trust, then they have to make the final decision. And if they make the final decision, then they share in the outcome of that person that is brought into the company. For those people that get the thumbs up, whether it's positive or negative, they share that outcome. And if the person needs some extra mentoring or if there's a problem, they'll step in to figure it out. But if you break that rule, if you go against their advice, then you're breaking the most important thing, where you trust them. You're saying, I don't trust you. I expect you to do a lot of work as an expert, but I don't really trust you at the end of the day because I'm going to go around you. Worst thing I believe you could possibly do. Another thing, passion, or should be quick here. Passion and intelligence must always come first, any day of the week. If somebody has passion and intelligence versus experience, then they can learn what they need to learn or grow however they need to grow in order to do what they need to do. But if they don't have passion, then regardless of anything, you're probably not, or I'm probably not going to get their best effort or their best work. They're stagnant for whatever reason, or it's just not a good fit. Versus somebody who really cares and is passionate, and then if you support them properly, they'll do whatever they need to do themselves, inspiring themselves, pushing themselves, motivating themselves to learn and to grow. Some people love checking references. I didn't put a lot of stock in checking references because people tend to offer up references who will say good things about them. I'm not saying checking references are a bad idea, because sometimes you can find things out that you otherwise might not have seen. But I wouldn't fall back on checking references. I would start with just, let me ask a lot of questions. Let me dig deep. Let me have a long conversation. Let me get other people's opinions, especially the experts. And I found more often than not that if I ever felt myself unsure that I needed to check references, more often than not, it was a sign that something was wrong or maybe it wasn't a good fit. So the importance of retention. After I've gone through these thousands of resumes and hired less than 1%, I definitely learned over the years the do's and don'ts of how to keep people retained. Hiring is wasted, obviously, if people don't stick around. like I said before, don't assume everything is okay just because no one is complaining. I continually ask all those questions that I talked about and interact with people. I don't wait for someone to come to me with a problem. When someone leaves, I try to figure out why. I start with asking myself those questions. Why are they leaving? Sometimes it's not so obvious as it might seem. Now, even if someone is let go for performance reasons, I always view it as my fault. I never view it as their fault, kind of shove it off. Oh, it's their problem. No, it's my problem because either I hired them or I didn't inspire them, or they were put on the wrong task, or they weren't given enough support that they need in order to grow. I can't emphasize that enough. In my opinion, that's just key. And I always try to learn from it. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, every time someone leaves, what is in the back of everyone's mind is time here is finite, when what I really want everyone to feel is time here is as long as I want it to be. Sometimes someone leaves for a good reason. For example, somebody says, well, you know, my spouse, my partner has got their dream job in another city. And, you know, this happened to me in the past. And I remember thinking at first, oh, well, that really sucks. I guess there's nothing we can do about that. Gosh, why? Okay. But I learned that, wait a minute, maybe that's not the whole story. Maybe that person that's leaving isn't really fully inspired or engaged. Maybe they're just kind of like not really that interested, but yet maybe I wasn't asking enough questions and I was waiting for they weren't complaining. So I was assuming that they were happy when maybe they weren't for one reason or another. So maybe when their spouse or their partner or whatever, you know, kind of says, hey, what would you think about, you know, me taking a job over there and us moving to this city or whatever, as opposed to them going, really, are you sure? Because I'm super happy where I am. What if they go, yeah, absolutely, let's go. Let me pack the bags. I'll go with you to the interview. You know, I'm laughing about it. And I shouldn't, but I am. But it's a very serious thing. But anyways, when someone would leave, even if it seemed like for a good reason, more often than not, sometimes I would find out years later what the real reason was. Usually not. Because by the time that person leaves, it's too late. They're never going to tell me the real reason they're leaving. And again, I look back at myself going, what am I missing here? And again, then I go back to, let me ask myself those questions. And in order to get the answers to the questions, let me dig deeper. Some companies consider attrition natural and healthy. I disagree. I think no one ever has to leave under the right circumstances. If you hire the right people and you inspire them constantly and you never stop asking these questions and being curious about what's really going on, why does anyone have to leave? It may sound idealistic, but think about it. The importance of mistakes. So making mistakes, whether it's a bug in software or it's estimating the time for something incorrectly or whatever, making mistakes is a natural consequence of being imperfect humans. We are not perfect, we make mistakes. It is very important, very critical when a mistake occurs to deal with it properly, to handle it properly, to react to it properly. Very tempting to jump in and fix it and put some extra processes in place for another person. That's just going to get people to clam up. So I start by and clamming up or being nervous and risk avoidance, because risk is required in order to have evolution and innovation. And if you clamp down on someone for making a mistake, never shame someone for making a mistake. You know, show them that you support them, that you trust them, that you're there for them, figure out how to better do things going forward. Otherwise, it's just going to cause more damage. So I ask myself those questions. If you handle it properly, I found that it can be a valuable learning experience for everybody in terms of how things are structured or what's going on or who's doing what. Again, it comes back to that. It should grow team confidence and trust if handled properly. I said, don't never shame someone, be gentle. People should feel comfortable and secure, embrace mistakes. Taking risks can create mistakes, but risks are lifeblood of evolution and innovation. Now, mind you, a mistake in consumer software is very different than a mistake in critical aircraft systems. But people must feel safe to take risks and ask questions without fear of repercussion. I was reading an article recently. I don't know. History is rife with cases, I'm sure you've all heard of them, where it seems like some basic, simple question wasn't asked that could have drawn attention to a fault or a flaw in the systems of something that ended up not working, that failed, that caused a catastrophe. So what if in an ideal culture, what if the most junior engineer or whatever person could raise their hand and say, hey, I'm wondering about what happens if that little thing over there that no one thinks anything is ever going to go wrong with, what happens if that actually fails? To look back on history, I believe that had the right questions been answered, had the environment, had the culture been something that was not risk averse, where you can actually ask questions as opposed to filling out paperwork, as is the case with some major contractors doing very difficult, high risk aircraft systems. I believe that those environments, my ideas might help. I don't know. It's just me. So I'm just trying to make a point here. It's better to allow for tiny little mistakes, which can lead to learning and growth and improving the culture, the environment, being a learning experience for everybody. It's impossible to avoid all mistakes. So I would rather have an environment where it's okay to make a mistake and people can, we can catch them early on. And I believe that having a culture that supports people taking risks and asking questions and making little mistakes that they then course correct themselves quickly will ultimately lead to a company able to avoid the bigger mistakes that caused that explosion or that catastrophe. Compassion and respect builds a healthier culture and a better company that makes less mistakes overall. So, why it's scalable and transferable. This is a key thing that I was asked to talk about. The company is all about the people. And so I believe that if you hire the right people and you treat them with respect and compassion and trust, then you're instilling in each individual the values of the company as a whole. And then one person at a time, you're growing a larger group of people that all share the same core values. But each person knows what's expected of them, how to do it, has motivation and confidence. And if it's just about the people and each person is kind of a representation of the larger company as a whole, then scaling it is just do more of that. Hire more of those people and support them that way in order to grow it. And also transferable. If you don't have centralized management, if you trust people to kind of look out after themselves and each other, then starting an office across town or across the world can start with just one people, like a seed, like planting to grow. I don't think that's possible if you have centralized management. Centralized management is the easy way of doing things. My way is a really hard way of doing things. But if you do it, if you work hard enough to make it happen and practice what I practice what I preach, then you have the opportunity to scale and transfer this infinitely. Wow. So it's hard to hire and inspire the right people, obviously. But as I was saying, it's simple when they don't require centralized management, complicated report structures, additional processes. In a flat, simple structure, people naturally organize and manage themselves. So during COVID, it was easy for people to transfer from working in an office to working remotely in this environment because people were already working kind of independently and collectively without having to have a lot of checks and balances and oversight. So whether it's one person or 10 people or 100 people, like I said, it's easy to build teams and offices, no matter where they are, that they can operate as closely or as separately as they need to based on the work that they're doing. So this is not for everyone, and why? This is my big caveat. This is hard. This is very, very hard. I'm not going to stand up here and say, yep, I did this and everyone should do this, because no, this sucked sometimes. This was really, really difficult to do. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of courage. It took a lot of leaps of faith, to trust, to ask questions, to be prepared to get responses that you don't want to hear, that make your life more difficult, not easier. But for me, it was worth it. It's not necessarily right for everybody. I chose a different philosophy that worked for me. But I encourage people to, because no two people are alike. There's not one approach that works for every environment. So I encourage people to just pick whatever structure you want. But I believe in the key values in terms of being careful who you hire, be careful with retention, be careful in support, be careful in avoiding politics, and so on and so forth. I think that is still applicable. Some companies can't afford to take risks, but like I said earlier, even aircraft manufacturers might benefit from some of the easy takeaways. The next section, I'm sure you're going, gosh, won't this guy shut up? Because aircraft manufacturers, like I keep talking about, the requirements are very different than consumer products or CAD software companies. But again, I think some of the things that I'm talking about can benefit any environment, no matter how big or how small it is or whatever they're working on. So this is just me. I repeat myself, but I'm not going along with the slides. You can have different structure and still try to minimize politics, try to keep people informed, motivated, inspired, and treated fairly. If you come away with anything today, we are human beings with natural desire for happiness and stability, feeling safe and secure, wanting to be part of their own community. Easy takeaways everyone can benefit from. Hire the very best people possible. Treat people with utmost respect. Try to understand them. Check in regularly. Don't assume everything is okay because no one is complaining. Mistakes are learning experiences. Let people be the guides. Trust people over processes and procedures. Again, it's all about the people. Create a formula that works for you, but always lead by example. And practice what you preach. Words are cheap. This is hard. So I've said a lot of things here that you may or may not agree with. I'm just telling you my thoughts and opinions. That's it. I'm not trying to tell you that everyone else is wrong and I'm right. Nope. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I did wrong and continue to, but I'm always trying to learn from it. Ultimately, I'm not trying to, you may be listening to me thinking, oh, this guy's talking about utopia. He's forgetting this issue and this thing. And I'm not. There is no utopia. No. What I'm saying is I could talk so long about all the problems that go with it, as I tried to touch on. It's really hard. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a leap of faith because there is no utopia. That being said, and this is an important thing that I will say, regardless of what kind of environment a company has or what kind of structure, what kind of philosophy, at the end of the day, it's what that company or that group of people creates. And if it's something interesting or cool, like a video game or a movie or a tool, some software or whatever, then that's something worth celebrating, regardless of how the work gets done behind the scenes. So we all stand upon the shoulders of others, upon the successes and also the mistakes of those who came before us. We all matter to one degree or another. I wish all of you the best at everything you do. I hope that I've inspired you tonight to think about things a little differently and maybe to come up with solutions that accomplish more than I was able to accomplish. That would be fantastic. Thank you for listening. koznom hodzi megalgadak.